What is up, everybody? I hope you are having a fantastic evening. It is Wednesday. Football season is over. Deebo Samuel wants to get traded. Sounds like Dre Greenlaw's not going to be back. Hafunga's not going to be back. Our pets' heads are falling off. We'll talk about it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second, and it's open mic night, which means it's your night to talk about whatever it is that is on your mind. Maybe there's something you want to take me to task over. Maybe that you want to talk about the draft. Maybe you want to talk about the Deebo trade or Dre Greenlaw not coming back potentially. Free agents you want to pick up, closing the gap on the Eagles, whatever it is that is on your mind, it is your night to talk about it. Link is in the description. It's also pinned to the top of the chat. That's the easiest way. Just click on that. It'll bring you backstage. You'll have to put in your name, and then boom, you are on, waiting for me to put you on the show. Very easy to do. You'll have 5 minutes to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. But we are going to start the show, first of all, with Korean 49er. Here we go. Hold on a second. What's up, Korean 49er?
I'm good, Jesse. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, man. How you been?
Oh, not too bad. It's a typical winter day up here. So, people are surprised that we actually got snow in winter. When you live in the upper Midwest, it's like a shock when you don't have it for a little while, then everyone sees it.
Yeah, for sure. I get it.
So, right now, this franchise needs to be more ruthless like the Chiefs and the Eagles. You got to understand that there's a lot of turnover and talent in Kansas City every year. And how quickly did the Eagles move on from Carson Wentz after that mistake? When that didn't pan out. I mean, they're not sentimental. They're not keeping players beyond a certain time frame, which that's their MO, and it's gotten them more success than the 49ers. I mean, Sirianni's already a better coach than Kyle. At least he learned from his first Super Bowl loss.
Yeah, man. That's one thing that I do admire about these organizations is they do a great job of picking and choosing and moving on from players. Tyreek Hill. I mean, I don't know that there's a bigger name. He was in his prime and he put up amazing years with the Dolphins. It's not like he went to the Dolphins, just fell apart. No, I mean, he could have made them look silly if they hadn't gone on to go to more Super Bowls and win Super Bowls. So, you got to be ruthless in this game, and it's hard to do. It really is hard to do because it's not like when Deebo Samuel, when you signed him or Ayuk, it's not like these guys weren't coming off good seasons or they're not good players, but you just can't sign everybody forever, and you're going to have some misses. And it seems like in the skill positions in particular, that's where the misses have come. And the 49ers continue to prioritize skill positions over the trenches, not only in the draft, but also through the guys that they sign and pay big money to. So it is interesting.
Yeah, so the Eagles taught us what we already learned about Kansas City previously. They got after Mahomes with 4, just like the Bucks did in that other Super Bowl loss. So if the 49ers think that they can be cute and skimp on the offensive and defensive lines, then they're really not learning anything, because they said when they compared the size of the offensive linemen from the very first Super Bowl, the first, that Packer team, 6'3", 245, which was about the size of Dick Butkus at the time, at
Yeah.
linebacker. But now they're 6'5", 6'6", all over 330 pounds a man on the offensive line. And you got big guys on the defensive line that are also can win one-on-one battles.
Yeah, I mean, how impressive is that offensive line that the Eagles had. I mean, the average weight was like 325. I mean, massive. And that's the other thing too, is it's like we want the 49ers to go trenches, but they don't even necessarily value the same things that I think a lot of us value. I know I value bigger body guys in the trenches, especially a defensive tackle. It's like I would love to have Walter Nolan, but I only want Walter Nolan if I can pair him with a guy that's 330. But the 49ers usually don't go for those types of guys. They go for the lighter defensive tackles and they put them out there together because they want them to be agile. And, I'm not saying it can't work. It just their philosophy is completely different than the things that I value. So it's yes, even if they go after the position groups, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go after the players that you covet, or they may do it differently than the Eagles. And I think that's where the interesting thing comes in. And every team has the same amount of money to spend. They have the same amount of roster spots. And there's so many different ways that you can twist and turn and choose your own adventure when it comes to building a roster. And they've done a good job. They've made it to a couple Super Bowls, but they have come up short. And you have to look at the teams that are winning Super Bowls. What is the difference? And really, the Chiefs, the Bucks, and the Eagles, the most recent winners, they all built through the trenches. They love the trenches, and that's where the 49ers have not gone. So at some point, you got to keep up with the Joneses a little bit.
Well, here's the problem. If they want to go with the trenches, can't count on Trent Williams. You can definitely not count on Colton McKivitz.
Yeah.
Um, Pooney was pretty decent. I mean, played well. Aaron Banks was good at times, and I don't trust Brendel. I mean, you at least have three positions, if not four, that you have to upgrade. And are you going to do that in one draft and off season? No, you got to continually be looking ahead to a couple of years and planning and thinking that you're going to have to you're going to backfill those positions.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the Eagles have done this through many years of building in the draft. This is not a one-off season thing, but that at some point you got to recognize where some of your shortcomings are. And I wouldn't be mad, if the 49ers decide to pour a bunch of picks into the trenches and then, do that for the next couple of years and really build this up. I just they're at a turn as a franchise, in my opinion, where you're going to pay Brock Purdy. You've chosen him as your franchise quarterback. Okay, great. So what is the next move? The next move cannot be have high paid guys who touch the ball or high paid corners. That's no longer the way it's going to work. You have to find a way to protect Brock Purdy, and you have to find a way to get after other elite quarterbacks if you want to beat them. And that means that you're going to have a philosophy shift. And I'm curious to see what they do, because if the 49ers draft Tyler Warren with pick 11 or Ashton Genty or something crazy like that, or McMillan, I'm going to lose my mind. Absolutely lose my mind.
It's one thing if they won a Super Bowl and they draft that kind of player. At least if you think that's the best player available at the position, then fine. I don't have any problems. But right now you have a lot of holes and gaps, and just putting your finger in the hole isn't going to stop the other 15 holes in the
You need some Flex Seal, it sounds like to me. That's what
or more better material. I don't know, but I'm just saying I don't want to be in a boat where there's 15 holes and I only have 10 fingers to try and plug the holes. I still got
Yeah.
5 holes, so to me they're not learning, they're not getting any better, and expecting Lynch to just be a good face when Jet is doing Jet things. I'm tired and beyond that.
Yeah, I'm definitely with it, man. I completely am on board with you. I'm curious to see. I really am curious to see what happens this offseason, because I feel like every time that the 49ers seem like they were going to pivot, it's like, all right, this is the offseason. They have it, they've stuck to their guns. So I want to see if their philosophy actually does change here. So I'm curious to see how this offseason goes. I really am.
Yep. Back in like the late 90s at the University of Texas, they had Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers, 660 pounds, right in the middle. You think
Yep.
that wouldn't be a beautiful thing for the 49ers to have, to show that, hey, we are learning, we are getting the bigger body guys that could maybe take up 3 or 4 of the interior linemen and allow one-on-ones at the end on the ends.
Yeah, I mean, because to me, I felt like the interior pass rush is really, or the interior of that defensive line in Philly is what really caused the issues because Patrick Mahomes wanted to step up and find those lanes, and he just couldn't do it because there's guys sitting there waiting for him up the middle, holding their gaps, and it was really hard for him. And you could tell he struggled in that
Yeah.
instance.
So just that's my thing. I just want the trenches, the lines to be rebuilt because that's how you win. I don't think Bill Walsh ever went in there not thinking I got to protect Joe Montana or Steve Young during his time, and I don't
Yep.
think any capable coach would ever say that. When Tom Brady was in with the Patriots, I don't think Belichick ever said, "I'm not going to protect him." So
Well, Tom Brady talked about that during the offseason, by the way. He talked about you show me an elite offensive line and I will show you the good teams. And he said the only the rare instances where you don't have an elite offensive line and you win is means you have an all-star team everywhere else. And the 49ers did kind of have that for a while. That's why they were making these Super Bowls because they did have an all-star team around a mediocre at best offensive line, but no longer is that the case. These players have aged, they've gotten more expensive, they've been injured. So now where do you go? Well, I mean, you can try to recreate that all-star team, or you can build through the trenches, which usually is a little bit easier to do if you know what you're doing and you continue to pour assets into there. So we'll see how they go about it, but it is a big offseason for this team for sure.
yep, that's all I had. Thank you, Jesse.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
You too.
Ooh. What did uh-oh. I don't know if I did that or if that was just coincidence, but I had two waiting and they left as soon as I kicked Korean 49er. My bad. If you want to call in, now's your time because nobody's waiting. I don't know if I just kicked the people out there were waiting or whatever. But link is pinned to the top of the chat for sure. All right. Shady Luke says, don't worry, Jesse. You weren't the only one completely wrong on Philly. Yeah, I definitely was, man. I really was. That was I just how do you bet against the Chiefs until you see it? Because year after year, they just continue to get it done. And when you look at it, the way that this Super Bowl played out, this to me is not the same as when the Bucks beat them. The Bucks beat them in a similar fashion, but the difference was we knew that protecting Patrick Mahomes was going to be a problem in that Super Bowl. They had 4 of their starting 5 offensive linemen out in that Super Bowl. So we knew they weren't going to be able to protect Patrick Mahomes. That was a given. That was not the case here. Now they have done some weird shuffling where they had to move in a guard to go out to left tackle, but the interior of that offensive line is as good as any interior offensive line in the NFL. They didn't have great tackles. That was an issue, but I don't think anybody thought that it would just be complete domination in that way. It was absolutely insane. And 0 blitzes on top of that, super, super impressive. So kudos to the Eagles, man. They did their thing for sure. And you can't knock it. You cannot knock it. The question is how many teams try to play copycat in this scenario? I don't know. We'll see. Cryptic says, disagree about the trenches. Thought both Super Bowl winners did good enough until late in the third and fourth quarter. What's funny is Jesse is that the Chiefs scored 22, which probably beat the Niners again. And RO gets stagnant when it matters. Yeah, I mean the Chiefs do have a tendency to score late. A lot of that was, I feel like Philadelphia, anyways. They took some of their starters out when the Chiefs started scoring. But I went over it yesterday or 2 days ago. This narrative that the 49ers would have won in that same scenario if their defense did what it was supposed to do. I'll do it again just real quick. Here is how the Super Bowl started last year. Chiefs on offense. Punt, punt, fumble, punt, field goal, halftime. They open half with interception, punt, field goal, punt. There's now 2 minutes and 42 seconds left in the third quarter at this point. They've scored 2 field goals, they've had 2 turnovers, and they've had 5 punts. The 49ers defense put them in a good position. But the difference was the 49ers offense wasn't putting up points, and the Eagles offense was to keep that pressure on them. So that was a major issue. It definitely was. I don't know that the 49ers would have necessarily won that Super Bowl either, but who knows? We got Varun backstage. I'm going to go to him. What's up, Varun?
What's up, Jesse? How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the draft for a bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I know you've been kind of against trading for the picks for Myles Garrett simply because the Niners need a lot more than just one edge.
For
But
sure.
I saw this on Twitter earlier today where the Niners could realistically maybe trade back into like maybe the early 20s and then try and get another first next year from a team. And then maybe we could flip that for Myles Garrett because realistically, whoever we take in the first round is not going to be Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, you're probably right. You're not going to get a Myles Garrett type of player. If you could trade back and pick up a first rounder next year and then flip that first rounder with this first rounder and still have a first rounder next year, like I would be open to that. My issue is that when I look at this draft, I don't know if that is going to be available to the 49ers. Like there's like a cast of like 5 players that are just super elite. It seems like that are going to be gone in the first 10 picks on top of the quarterbacks. And then after that, it's like a bunch of arguments can be made. It's, you can go to ESPN. I'll give you an example. You can go to ESPN. They'll have Ezra Thomas rated as like the 113th prospect. And then you can go somewhere else and they're like, well, he's the 3rd best corner in the draft. He's going to go early round 2. So there's like a lot of wiggle room with these prospects. I think a lot of these guys are going to fall, and it's all, beauty in the eye of the beholder. I just don't know that teams are going to be willing to go from 20 something to 11 unless there's maybe a quarterback there that they covet. Other than that, I just don't see that type of player warranting that type of movement from the 49ers. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one I was looking at was Denver maybe trying to move up for someone like Tyler Warren because I think he would really help them out offensively. He's getting another versatile weapon for Bo Nix. But I just also feel like Kyle Shanahan, I don't trust him with the first round pick in such a pivotal year.
For sure.
That's kind of my mindset is let's get off the pick, take it out of Kyle Shanahan's hands, and get like a guy we know that is going to be elite for us.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, there's no arguing the type of player that Myles Garrett is, and there's also no arguing that if he goes to the Lions or the Commanders or the Eagles, like that would be devastating. It absolutely would. For me, and again, I know that I'm in a completely different mindset than where the 49ers are, and I know I'm in a different mindset than a lot of the fans. I don't believe that this team is going to win a Super Bowl next year or really be serious contenders for it. I think they can make the playoffs. I do. Maybe they can sneak out a win. I think that ship has sailed. And so to pour assets like that, and by the way, you're going to have to rework his deal, pour those types of assets into a guy who's going to be 30 years old next year on a team that's already aging, expensive, and needs depth. I just don't know how that long term helps this team win around Brock Purdy, which is the ultimate thing that we have to focus in on now. But, I do believe the 49ers view it different. I think a lot of fans view it different, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, the other lens is looking through Brock Purdy's contract. It's only going to get more. I think the 49ers are going to probably backload it. It's going to get more expensive as the years go on. So my only thought is, all right, well, while it's cheap, I would still try and say, hey, let's win in the next few years because in like 3 years, his cap hit's going to be like $50 million. And the 49ers are not going to have the wiggle room to get around that. And we're going to have to re-sign guys like Dominic Pooney, Malik Mustafa at that point. And I just don't know how the 49ers, how much flexibility they're going to have at that point when Purdy's contract and his cap hit really just starts to hit.
Yeah, I mean, but then at that time, and this is where you get a lot of wiggle room. If you have a guy who is truly a franchise quarterback and is going to be here for 10 years, when that money's about to hit, that's when you restructure the deal and you push it back even further. And you just keep doing that until they retire. And then the year they retire or you trade them because you feel like they're washed, you take that one massive hit for all that money you've continued to push off. And, at that point, it's a rebuild year anyway. So who cares? So that's the way that I see it, is like you always can find money, especially with a big, big contract, depending on how it's structured. So,
Yeah, I think also I'm trying to look at how the 49ers are going to see it, as you said. Like, I think there's going to be part of Jed York and Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. This is, the Super Bowl's in Levi Stadium. I think they're going to try and go all in. And I'm not sure whether that's the right move or not, but I think I agree with you that they shouldn't just pour all their assets into Myles Garrett. I think they have to find a clever way to do it if they're going to do that.
for sure, yeah, and I mean, it just depends on what the problem is. Like when I look at Myles Garrett versus, let's say, a Max Crosby. If Max Crosby became available, Myles Garrett's a better player, but Max Crosby is so much younger that I would be willing to give up 2 first-round picks. But and so when I look at Garrett, I say, okay, yeah, if you can give up like a first and a third, that would be great. But Cleveland's probably going to want 2 firsts because they're going to take a massive cap hit to trade him. And that's where things get interesting and really hard versus I look at it and say, well, he's 29, he's about to be 30, a first and maybe something else, but not 2 firsts. But other teams are probably going to be willing to give up those 2 firsts. So if you're not willing to do that, you're not even going to be in the conversation, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean that's all I had. I think you make some great points, but I feel like the 49ers are going to definitely just try and go all in this year, and
I do too.
I hope
I do
they.
too. And I hope it works out for him. I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
do. I don't know. I'm skeptical, I guess.
The biggest thing I'm worried about is that they're going to go in with Jake Brendel and Nick Zakelj and Colt McKivitz starting next year, because that would be the most Kyle Shanahan thing to do.
Probably, yeah.
And they draft
Sounds
Tyler
like
Warren
me.
in the first round. That's probably what Kyle Shanahan's thinking.
Oh, that would be awful.
Yeah.
All right, Varun. Hey, thanks for calling in, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Later, man. Oh, the Kyle Shanahan skepticism, for sure. We definitely could see it happening. All right, let's see here. Papa's at a restaurant? You're watching me at a restaurant? I appreciate that, man. Is it like you're hanging out with us? It's just you at the restaurant and then you're hanging out with us? Or are you actually like with your wife and kids? Because I would say don't get in trouble watching me. You can watch the replay. All right, I'm going to go to Nick real quick, see what he's talking about. What's up, Nick?
What's up, man? Long time no hear. How you been?
Yeah, I've been really good, man. How you been?
Doing all right. Can you hear me?
I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I know I couldn't chat with you and what is it the 4-man front that you guys normally run.
Yeah.
Um, I got a new phone and lost my password for the whole YouTube stuff, man. Trying to hunt that down and get that together. I know.
Good luck.
Giving you guys information, you and Ryan, for the most part, it's hard to talk to Grant unless you're not dumping money in his pocket. You know what I mean? But I do appreciate your content. But yeah, man, my cousin's he did the whole Senior Bowl stuff, and then he's going to be practicing on that 40 time. You know what I mean? But I'm sure he'll do.
What position do you think will fit him better? Because I've heard you say like, hey, I could see him playing fullback, taking
Yeah.
Juice's spot, but also he could be a running back. We're talking about Cam Scatterboo, by the way. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been hitting at home with this for like a good while with you guys, you and Ryan anyway. And I just
Yeah.
find it funny that coach, what he said, bro, the Rudy Gagger, like, dude, like my
Oh, he
cousin's
changed
got,
his mind real quick after
oh, I
that
bet he
game. I'll tell
did.
you
I
that
bet he
right now.
did,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
and me, I've been a Niner fan since 1989. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
he before the kid's been born. So he's my second cousin, bro. And the kid plays with heart. he does everything from pretty girls to fly fishing. So let me tell you, he does everything. So you know what I mean? And he's not scared to play football. Obviously, everybody's seen the Peach Bowl, the big game, and he stands on what he says he does. To me, I remember we talked about when he was 18, that was the biggest thing because some people wanted to put him at safety,
Mm.
in college at Sac State. And we're like, no, stay there. But I think he can run a four, like a 4.5, 4.55 to
Hmm.
4.6. You know what I mean? But that's what they're working on with speed. The biggest thing with him is, does he want to shed more weight, more muscle mass, like even go, and then take away from his game, because what the Niners are missing is that toughness. We don't have that anymore. You know,
I agree.
we're not John Elway. We're not a finesse team. Before they had Terrell Davis, where he could sit back there and throw 50 times. That's not who we are, man. And that's what Shanahan's been trying to do. But I think he could take Juice's spot. The thing is they'd have to put a pro body on him even to gain another 15 to 20 pounds of muscle mass, dude. Because I know the kid can squat like 950 pounds, like but nobody's business, dude. But I think with him, it's just, would they get him early in the third round? Because I think that's only knock on him is his home run speed. But what running back nowadays got home run speed? Barry Sanders didn't have home run speed. You know what I mean? But
He's just a football player, man, and that's
yeah,
the thing is it's like you're not. It's less obviously to a much lesser degree, right? Like Travis Hunter might be the first pick in the draft, but it's that's the question. What position does Travis Hunter play? It's like who cares? Just get him in the building, figure it
yeah,
out. He's
let's
a
get him
football
in there.
player. And it's like I look at Cam, and if I'm just looking at him as a running back, like sure, there might be a lot of other prospects that I would go over him, but Cam's a good football player. There's a lot of things you can do with him, and that's what the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan really prioritized Kyle Juszczyk when he first came here in
Right.
2017. Like that was the
Yeah,
first big signing
they
he
gave him a
made.
big bag. Yeah, they gave him a
Yeah,
big
that was
bag to
and
come. Yeah,
but it was like he's a football player. He can
yeah,
he can catch, he can block, he can run, he could and then he's aged. And I look at Cam, I'm like, well, he can do all those things and he
yeah,
can throw on top of it. So,
yeah.
it's just one of those things like
I'd
just
like
get
to.
him in the building and figure it out.
I'd like to see him and McCaffrey because that's his idol is McCaffrey, dude. I'd like to see them both in the backfield. That would be awesome, man. I know. I don't want to give away too much stuff and say too much, without him, you know. But I know the whole Dan, was it Dan Patrick? He was on Dan Patrick show after
Mhm.
the Texas game. And he called his own play. Like he been throwing it out of the backfield. He's been doing it since college, man, even in high school. But I just think with him is whoever gets him is they're gonna get it, like he said, a gym. I got family that's like my dad's family is straight Steelers, bro. You know what I mean? They're Steelers, and I
Yeah.
could see him being a Steeler. You know what I mean? And I got other family that's Cowboys fan, but my cousin and him and my other cousins, we're all Niner fans. Like we'd love to see him, in scarlet and red and gold. But my thing is how, we get rid of Debo. Debo's gone. Let him go, man. I love Debo. I bought a jersey, I bought my daughter a jersey, and it's like if he wants to go, let him go. But the offense is going to have to change like tremendously. I could see them doing the old Bill Walsh, the far east west with Roger Craig and Tom Rathman. Like, let's go back to the roots, man. Shanahan's got all the stuff there. You could take away and use stuff, but he don't want to. I think with him is a lot of the stuff went to Miami, dude. With McDaniels, the whole
I
philosophy and everything went out the window.
yeah, I just like when I look at Cam too, it is interesting you bring up the Steelers. I see Steelers written all over him too.
Oh man, it'd be
Steelers, Chiefs.
nasty. I'll
Yeah,
be
some of
having to
these
get a
teams.
Steelers jersey, man. I'll have to get one.
Yeah, well, he
Yeah.
is your cousin. You got to, you know
Yeah,
what I
it'd
mean?
have to get one, man. And I don't know. The biggest thing is our grit's gone. We don't have any grit. We could say Lyman all day. We know Brindle's trash. We know McKivitz he was better this year, but we can't run to the right. We know Trent. He's top 3 in the league, but when he's healthy, But I don't see us getting Garrett, man. It's going to be Miles Garrett. It's going to be too much a overhaul to get him, too much to get Max. They're going to try to get somebody in the draft. What they're going to do, they're going to have to start really not even retool. It's going to be a gutting it team for the most part. If they want to push all in Super Bowls this year at home, they're going to have to really look like what got us here. From the Harbaugh days to the Shannon, it's running the ball, run, play, action. That's what our team is. That's the old Mike Shanahan, bootlegs, get everybody on the edge of the corner, throw the ball, not this push the ball down the field. We don't have Elway. We don't have Josh Allen. We don't got somebody to push the ball down the field. If they want to keep Purdy and sign him to $50-$60 million a year deal, like our team's going to suffer like crazy. We're going to be the Cowboys for sure.
God, dude, I hope not. I
The writing's on the wall, and I know. And I know Larry's over there beating the drum like boom, boom, boom. Like, no, man, like that. I love the kid. He does like Montana says, he deserves his money, but as soon as we give him that money, it's a wrap. Dr. Dre's voice, it's a wrap. Like we're not we're stuck, man. And I look at it like if he took a 35-40, we can build a team and we can compete for championships every year. But once they give him that money, it's done.
Well, the good news is, like I said, they'll still have a couple years where he's going to be inexpensive, and as long as he can prove out to be the guy, then they can continue to push money back. It is going to be tough. It is going to be a tough pill to swallow, but it is coming, and so I'm looking at it saying, how can they build around him and still try to be competitive? And that's really all I'm looking at right now is what do they got to do to remain competitive and win a Super Bowl? Because I mean, listen, I get it. Like I'm the resident Brock Purdy hater, but dude, I just want the 49ers to win. You're realist. I don't care.
I believe we should start our own podcast. Keep it. Let's be real and let's be honest. Let's be real. Let's be honest.
I get it, man.
They gotta sign Dre. If they don't sign Dre, our defense don't matter who's pat. He's the heartbeat of the D, man. We've seen it for the 2 or 3 plays he was back. He's the guy. Huff is walking. Secondary for the most part is good. We got to sign Dre. We could probably get another pass rush in the draft. But the big guys, Max, my brother's a Raiders fan. We're not getting him, dude. He's going to want too much. Myles Garrett's going to want too much. They're not giving up that much assets. Offensive line, we got to get a center because that guy, he's soft as baby food. We can't, you know what I mean? He gets pushed around like all day. And then the right tackle, man, they can't run the ball or do anything like that. But the combine's going to be interesting. I think he's going to run. I think I wouldn't run if I was him, but I think he's going to run just to prove everybody this is who I am. And he's going to show he's a lot faster than what people think, man. That's for sure.
Yeah, he definitely plays faster, and I'm excited to see where he goes. I really am. Nick, I got to get to the next one, man. I appreciate you calling in.
Hey,
and definitely stay in the DMs, and we'll talk about Cam. We'll see where he ends up, man.
Peace, love, and hair grease, everybody.
Later, bro. That's funny, man. Yeah, Nick's called in I think 1 or 2 other times, and I obviously put it together pretty quick because I've talked to him a lot through Instagram DMs. But he's been talking to me about Cam forever, for over a year, and then this year I finally saw him play. I was like, okay, yeah, I can see why you love him. I mean, he's your cousin for one, but he is a good player for sure. All right, we're gonna go to Shills here. What's up, Shills?
Hey, what's up, Jesse? I usually give you a lot of nonsense in your on your post, or whatever, but
it's all good, man.
Do you think that Niners are preparing for a future without Kyle Shanahan? And the reason I'm asking that is usually if you've worked anywhere and you have a boss, and then someone comes in and says, hey, your boss, you're going to have a co-boss now. And they bring in a co-boss. Nothing's changing. Everything's staying the same. And then your co-boss, the co-boss then hires a bunch of people, brings a whole bunch of people in. Usually that means your boss is going to be out the door fairly soon, within 6 months to a year. That's just what I've seen. And that's what it looks like with the whole situation with Saleh, because it's not just that they brought in Robert Saleh. He's bringing in everybody. He brought in a couple of different coaches. He brought in Gus Bradley came in with him. The other guy, Boyer, the special teams coordinator.
Yeah.
Hey, man, maybe we can get Saleh to pull in people. How is it that Saleh, the guy who just got here, has pulled all around the league to bring people in the door, and Kyle Shanahan doesn't? That looks really, really bad for Kyle. Like, he's not really on good grounds with the organization, and maybe he's not really got the same pull in the league that maybe once upon a time did. What do you think about that? That the Niners are letting this whole situation play out, like maybe this year, maybe 2026, seeing what Kyle can do, and if he can't do something, at least show the team moving in the right direction, if not win the Super Bowl. How likely is it that Saleh's the guy to replace him?
Dude, I honestly had not thought about it like that. But when you put it into real world terms, I can certainly see what has led you down this path. You know, it's interesting because I talked about it from a little bit different perspective. I was having a conversation with coach about it, and we're like, man, you know, Robert Saleh brought in the special teams coordinator, and he's bringing in a whole defensive staff. And to me, I just looked at it was like, you know, when Kyle came in to being a head coach, his dad gave him the Rolodex. Well, his dad's Rolodex has reached its endpoint. You know, a lot of these coaches have retired or their kids have moved on or whatever. They've gotten promotions. And so Kyle's just kind of ran out of people to shoulder tap. So he brings in Saleh, which is awesome. But Saleh has a whole Rolodex that he's shoulder tapping and bringing to the 49ers. I definitely see where you're going. I don't know, man. I could see a scenario where it just doesn't go well, and the 49ers front office is very comfortable with Saleh, and they could make that move. But I also think about it like this. What if it does go well, and Robert Saleh leaves after a year, which a lot of people are talking about? That's not my biggest concern. But all of this coaching staff is essentially his. So what do you think's going to happen? They're going to show loyalty to him. He's going to say, all right, Gus, you're my defensive coordinator. All right. You know, Boyer, you're my special teams coordinator, and I'm bringing all you. So it's like the 49ers are going to be in a really weird situation. They're not just going to lose Saleh. They're probably going to lose over half the staff because it's his staff anyways. So I don't know, man. I think I like where you're going with it. I don't necessarily know if that's the case, but in a real world scenario, yes, you definitely are right. That would mean that the boss is on his way out very soon, and they're getting the next guy ready.
And you got to ask yourself another question. I can understand Kyle Shanahan being new in the league, not new as a head coach, but new in the league.
Mhm.
Maybe he hasn't built up the connections yet. Maybe he doesn't have a Rolodex, but he has a very, very long history in the league. He's been around for a while in a variety of positions at a variety of organizations. You would think there would be somebody who he could call to get to fill a job, and it doesn't look like he can. That's really, like, I find it concerning that you have a head coach who hasn't built up the connections within the league, considering how long he's been around, to be able to bring somebody in. The other thing that I hadn't really, I haven't been really paying attention to everything for a minute, but the fact that Wes Welker left the 49ers as a receivers coach to go to Miami, not to become the offensive coordinator or something like that, but to have the exact same job. What does that really say about Kyle Shanahan? You know what I'm saying? It's not like he went and got promoted down in Miami. If it were a salary issue, I'm sure Jed would cut the check if Kyle asked him to. Wes Welker leaves, and the receiving core has been good, but it hasn't really, you haven't seen the same type of production out of, like, let's say, Deebo or whoever you want to talk about since then. It's kind of one of those things like, what's really going on with Kyle Shanahan? Is it just that we all as fans kind of like have this perception, like everyone had with Bill Belichick, like he's kind of not a pleasant person or whatever, not media friendly, but then inside the building he's got whatever type of connection he's building with his staff and his players, even if he's hard on them, where he's able to build a solid organization. It doesn't seem like that's the case with Kyle. That he doesn't have that organizational management and building and management capacity, and that would suggest to me that he's really never been the person who should have ever been the head coach, even if he can drop really cute plays once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Kyle definitely has some rough edges for sure. But it does seem like these guys like him. I don't know. Kyle's a tough nut to crack for me because from the outside looking in, the way that he talks to the media and the way that he portrays himself is one way. And then, the players seem to say the complete opposite. So how is he really with the players? I looked at Kyle and thought like, okay, Kyle to me, especially after the Ayuk situation, Kyle to me is the type of leader that doesn't address people on an individual basis. He's very passive aggressive. So if he has a problem with a player, instead of addressing that player, he'll address the team as if it's a team issue when it's really just a player issue. And then you hear other players say, no, he's actually really direct. You know exactly where you stand, but that wasn't the treatment that Ayuk got. So I don't know. I really don't know what to make, and it's really hard without being in there day to day. I will say that Wes Welker issue, just to clear something up. So November of that final season that Wes Welker was there, I got a text saying at the end of the year, Wes Welker and Rich Scangarello will be out. They've worn out their welcome for whatever that's worth. And then that offseason, Rich Scangarello went to be the offensive coordinator for, I believe, Kentucky. And then Wes Welker left with McDaniel to go to Miami. But I don't know what happened there or what the issue was. But I will say Wes Welker, I think, was probably a better option than Hankerson because Wes Welker at least ran with Deebo and kept him in shape and, did some of these other things. And I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like it's gotten better, but I am curious to know what the issue was. And it seemed to be the Niners or Shanahan wasn't happy with Welker, and that's why he moved on. At least from the vibe that I got in November of that season before he left.
Yeah, one last thing, like on the Super
Mhm.
Bowl, I think everybody has to be ecstatic that the Eagles won. Not because just hear me out. Hear me out.
Yeah.
From my perspective, what we've seen is really like a development of the league moving more towards being even more quarterback focused than it would naturally be as you start becoming more of a passing league. And the rules favoritism towards the offense, a lot of the calls going the offense's way. And you start seeing some of the things that Patrick Mahomes is doing where it would look like he's attempting to draw a personal foul, and seeing that sort of proliferate throughout the league, like with, what's that guy, Trevor Lawrence, people like that. And from my perspective, as someone who's been watching the Niners since 1981, the game had developed in such a way that it wasn't really like the game that I knew growing up, and it lost a lot of the physicality, a lot of the actual understanding of the situation of the game, lost a lot of the life of it. So it started looking more like somebody trying to play a fantasy league game as opposed to actually playing the game of football within the context of what's going on in the field. And from my perspective, seeing the Eagles win and how they did it, for all of you who didn't get a chance to watch, the ball back in the 80s or like the early 90s, that's what football used to look like back then. You stuck with a run, even if it wasn't working. They stuck with Saquon because that took up so many of the Chiefs' resources on defense. It kept them from being free, from Spags from freely just calling plays, dialing things up however he wanted, because it always had to account for Saquon. And by continuing to stick with him and stick with a run, despite what everyone's saying about how the run didn't work in the Super Bowl, it worked exactly how it was supposed to work. Either Saquon is going to break one, take one to the house, do what he does like throughout the season, or you're going to have to dedicate so many resources to him that Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Swift, they're going to be able to score going to the receivers. And this is sort of the dilemma that the Niners used to pose to people with Bill Walsh. This is what you used to see all, the freaking Cowboys, like, as much as I don't want to give them any type of respect ever, but this is what you saw with Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin, that you really had to account for Emmitt Smith. And so Michael Irvin could do his thing. From my perspective, I would much rather see this type of football than the product that has been put on display over the past 5 years or so. I think it's a much better product in terms of what we're getting as fans. Maybe other people disagree, but that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a get off my lawn take, but I agree with it because that's the style of football I prefer. I love smash mouth defenses and physical, and that's that's what we grew up on. And it is interesting because I'm looking at Patrick Mahomes, and he's great, right? And if he had won, a lot of people would want to put him into that conversation as the best ever. But you are starting to see now that, maybe he wouldn't have been as effective back in the 80s. As great of an athlete as he is, and the tools that are at his disposal, it's just a completely different game for all these quarterbacks. They do have a lot more time, and they don't have to worry about getting blasted. And it really just shows you how even the best in today's game really might have struggled back in the day. And when I look at those older players and how they translate today, I think they would be even better because they don't have to worry about their receiver getting jammed 10, 15 yards downfield when it was legal. They wouldn't have to worry about getting blindsided and blasted in the knees or around the neck or in the face mask. So I just feel like a lot of those older players would translate better today, at least at the quarterback position, versus the quarterbacks today translating to that type of game. But it is very interesting. And the reason I laughed is because the word you used was ecstatic. We should be ecstatic about the Eagles winning. And I think that's a bit strong. I think we should be happy, and I think that we should have rooted for them. Not rooted. We should have had a preference that they won, because to me, Shills, I think it feels like the league finally got balance on its access point again, and we can look forward and say, okay, this is not just a one-team show. This is not, we don't have to worry about this team getting all the calls and winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl as long as Patrick Mahomes is in the league. Balance got restored in the NFL. We have the NFL back. The rest of us that aren't Chiefs fans, we feel like we got the NFL back, and now we can look forward to everybody playing and having a chance again. That's the way that I see it.
I would say one thing though is that I don't know. I haven't I don't have it in my recollection, and they didn't really show it enough back in the day. Just what defensive lines were doing back then, to be able to compare how those D lines would stack up against this Eagles defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse, man, that was such high level defensive line play, and how they just did everything. When you would see the DN go down, you would see Carter come around, and he would reset the edge, and the end who had been knocked down would come up, be able to get up and reestablish pressure on Mahomes. That's not just individual effort. That is high level defensive line play. So, it's not just a question of, hey, we're gonna drop 7 and rush 4 guys. And we've seen the Niners kind of do it, and it doesn't play out the same way. You have to really invest in those positions, really invest in draft capital across the board, really have a very astute front office who's looking for a bond who they can bring in on a 1-year deal and say, hey, we're going to give you a shot. We believe you, see what you can do, and have that belief in that player who came in on the cheap to be able to really put all your pieces together. It's what they did over there. Howie Roseman and those guys deserve a lot of credit on how they drafted and built the defense, the offensive line. It's great stuff, but we see a blueprint for the rest of the league. Hey, we don't all need a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Patrick Mahomes. Not saying we wouldn't take one if we could get one, but if you don't have them, here's another way you can put things together and get it done and get yourself a ring. Get yourself a line, get yourself a solid quarterback, get yourself some receivers, run the ball, have a good defense, you have a shot.
You know what I find really ironic about that game plan in the Super Bowl from Vic Fangio is the 49ers passed on Vic Fangio, right? And 2 years later, he ends up with Philadelphia. And the reason they passed on Vic Fangio is because schematically he didn't fit what Kyle wants to do. The ironic thing is this: he broke all tendencies in that Super Bowl and did exactly what the 49ers do. He ran cover 4 rushing only 4 because he felt like he had the players to do it, and he was going up against a team that wasn't going to run the ball consistently and a team that wasn't going to beat them over the top, and he keep everything underneath them and just force them to make mistakes. And that's exactly what happened. And I find it super ironic that the guy that they passed on used the game plan that they would prefer to beat the Chiefs when they couldn't do it the 2 other times themselves. I just thought it was really, really interesting.
The issue there for me is that coach has said it a bunch of times that Kyle has schemes, whether it's offense or defense. He likes a wide nine, like whatever else he's trying to do on offense and all that. And he wants to get players to fit those particular schemes. Thank you. If he's doing exactly that sort of, not necessarily all the way wide nine, but rush 4, drop 4, all that, what you're talking about. He's wanting to have the freedom to do what he's supposed to do as a defensive coordinator and put together the best game plan for the situation. It's what you should do on offense. It's what you should do on defense. But because we have a situation where we have a head coach who is so attached to whatever particular scheme it is, he doesn't have the coordinators, even Kyle himself, they don't have the freedom to do what actually needs to be done for that particular game and to win that game, because he's so tied to the scheme. It's the wildest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen somebody so stubbornly run the same series of plays over and over again that just don't work. They worked maybe once upon a time. They're not working right now. Why are we still doing these jet sweeps and whatever else you want to talk about in terms of forcing the ball out, not just to Deebo, because he would be the most prevalent, like the obvious example, but none of that was working for most anybody on the team the entire year. So why are we still forcing that? Why aren't we developing something new? Why aren't we, quote unquote, why isn't Kyle, quote unquote, going in his bag? Why is he being so stubborn? If I think it was Brad, I apologize, he's another content creator, another thing. He was talking about that he had heard somewhere along the line that the only reason that there's been some friction between Deebo and the organization for some time now, and that the reason Deebo's still around is because Kyle wanted him to still be on the team, because Kyle was still supporting him. And I have to just wonder, how is it that, if that is true, that with that caveat, we don't know if it's true or not, but assuming that it is true, how can a head coach possibly prioritize that relationship with a player over what's best for the team's success when you're seeing repeatedly that what we once had in Deebo Samuel is not materializing and that those plays aren't working? It makes no sense at all to me. But anyway.
Well, Tim Cavalcami and Matt Barrows had a podcast a couple of days ago and confirmed that. They said that that last year when Deebo Samuel was shopped during the draft, it was because Jed York and Parag wanted to, and it was Kyle that basically didn't want to trade him. And they gave Kyle his wish. So yeah, I mean that's does line up. Yep.
That's terrible, bro.
So anyways, all right, bro. Hey, thanks for calling in, and make sure to keep talking trash in the comments.
Yeah, always, man. Have a good night.
All right, man. Later, you too. He started out the call. Just so you know, I troll you a lot in your YouTube comment section. It's like, all right, cool. Well, now's your chance to troll on the call, but that was actually a really good call. Stelvey says Vic didn't want to be here. I thought, not us wanting him. All right, so here's the thing. This is how the story actually went down. And so there's no for sure, but just look at how the story and the timeline of how everything happened, and you tell me who didn't want to be where. All right. So going into the 2020, what was it? He was 24. The 2022 season. I'm trying to remember the year. Either way, Vic Fangio was no longer a coach. He took a season off, and yes, it was going into the 2022 season. Vic Fangio was hanging around the 49ers a ton. He was there all off season. He was a consultant. And then when the season started, he basically kind of went off and did his own thing. Then at the end of the season, Philadelphia actually hired him, gave him a title to consult, and he helped them game plan for the Super Bowl. Okay. Fast forward to the 2023 offseason. Vic Fangio gets back into coaching. Miami, there's a report that comes out that Vic Fangio is going to be Miami's next defensive coordinator. The report drops, but there's no official announcement for like 3 or 4 days. And everybody's like, what are they waiting for? Like, why aren't they introducing him? What's going on? Well, Vic Fangio in this time sets up an interview with the 49ers. Remember, beginning of that offseason, he was helping them. He was a consultant. He was in the building all offseason. And now he's putting off this job in Miami, which he clearly had, and interviews with the 49ers. He interviews with the 49ers, and then after that, he takes the Miami job. To me, seems pretty clear. He wanted to be here. He's hanging around all offseason. He puts off a job that he has already in the bag and interviews with the 49ers. To me, it sounds like he wanted to be here, and the 49ers didn't want him here because of some schematic issues. But I definitely could be wrong, but to me, that's the way that it clearly lines up. So, all right, man, we behind enemy lines here. We got SoCal Ram waiting backstage. Let's see what he's got to talk about. What's up, SoCal?
Can you hear me?
I got you. Yes.
Cool, man. Just checking in on you, see how you guys are doing, seeing what we all learned from this Super Bowl win with the Eagles.
Yeah, man. I think there's definitely a lot to learn. I got a question for you, though.
Yeah, go ahead. Shoot it.
What if Matthew Stafford leaves? What are y'all going to do?
Yeah. If he does leave, I got to put faith in McVay, in this organization, that they know what they're doing. And here's why. You know, they've letting players go. They've letting players like their QB go. Goff, they let him go. Gurley, Robert Woods. I mean, they've letting these players in their prime leave. So kind of like how you've said it before, sometimes it's better to let them go before they're older, so you can get something for them. So I mean, if that's the case, I mean, who knows? Maybe we might get lucky and get a Bo Nix in the draft, or even a quote unquote Brock Purdy. You just never know. But I trust them in doing what I think is best for this team going forward. You've seen what they've done. They've had 2 really good drafts, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I just had a couple things I know you were talking about the whole Deebo thing, asking to be traded. I started thinking to myself, what if he knows something and thinks maybe this team is maybe two years behind now, and he wants to go win it somewhere else, and he's probably like, hey, you know what, maybe I should go win somewhere else while I still can, while I'm still young. And as far as the Kyle thing, I also think maybe he does get in his own ways, kind of like Jerry Jones, where he wants to do it his way and his way only. But what are your thoughts on that, as far as him kind of being thick-headed and not adjusting to certain things? Like you said, you had Big Banjo in the building. That I see where you're going. It could have been you guys, you guys run the same scheme. And here's my thing. Those multiple first-round picks that you guys spent on Trey Lance, you might not think about it, but they could be used right now for a Myles Garrett, or to build where those pieces that you guys are missing on either the offensive line or the defensive line. It's just people tend to forget that, and that falls on Kyle. Trying to go up for trade and not even honestly working on him.
Yeah, and the thing with the whole Trey Lance thing is I'm never gonna hold their feet to the fire over trying. My issue with the Trey Lance thing was twofold. They could have had Tom Brady the offseason prior and said no. Tom Brady then went and won a Super Bowl, but they wanted Jimmy Garoppolo. That's number one. They never scouted Patrick Mahomes, really. They didn't go to his pro day. That was number 2. But when it came to drafting Trey, they didn't move up to draft Trey. They moved up for the pick, and then they were going to figure it out from there. That's never a good idea. When Kansas City moved up, they moved up for Patrick Mahomes. these teams move up for specific players. Now, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, but the strategy of moving up for the spot and then evaluating the players, that's a little bit interesting. So, I'm not going to crush them necessarily for going after who their quarterback, I guess, but the whole process was a little bit weird. And you're right. Those picks definitely right now are hurting the 49ers and their depth on the offensive and defensive line, most likely, because you got to imagine a couple of those picks might have been poured into that. But here we are. So, and then also a lot of that was forced by what the Rams did, because the Rams going to get Stafford really forced the 49ers hands. And initially, I think the 49ers wanted to move or use those picks on Deshaun Watson, but then he had the whole massage parlor stuff. So they stayed away, which good news on that.
Yeah,
So
good
it was
news.
just a whole weird deal. And even the day before the draft, they called the Packers on Aaron Rodgers and were willing to offer that pick for Aaron Rodgers. And the Packers said no. So all the way through the process, they didn't want to go with a young quarterback. They didn't even know which one they wanted to go with until they moved up there. The whole process was backwards versus I love that they were aggressive, but man, the process just made zero sense whatsoever. As far as the Rams go, I think there's a lot of ways that the Rams could go if they lose Stafford. I would trust that McVay and that front office has it together as well. I mean, your GM's also really good. You've got a good owner. So, if they move on from Stafford, there's a reason for it. But it would definitely get interesting for sure.
Yeah, everybody thought that the Rams weren't going to be good on defense since Aaron Donald retired, and
Right.
even I was one of them. I was like, damn, now we're not going to be nowhere near good, and look what they did. Like this defense is better without him. Nobody can say like they're getting more pressure, more sacks, more takeaways now with these young guys on the ball, and it shows on every level. But I mean, there is rumors that maybe Stafford does go to the Giants because there's like that chemistry with, I think it's his brother-in-law.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Who knows? They could get up. They do have the third pick overall. I don't really know, but I don't think Stafford would want to go somewhere else just for money now, this late in his career, unless he was to go to a real competitor, which like I don't know who's in the market for him that could say that they're gonna win next year, or they're just missing that QB.
Yeah, who's
Raiders
just
are
a
still so
quarterback
far off.
away? Right.
There's nobody, like nobody really.
Steelers, maybe, you know what I mean? But then you're playing in the cold weather. That's
Yeah,
not
like
ideal.
yeah, and it's just kind of my forte on that, and like um I don't know. What do you think? Like, do you think he leaves or do you think he stays? And also, though, if he wants like a big bag, which I've seen quarterbacks do, like let's just use Joe Burrow as an example, or other players like Trevor Lawrence, you're hurting the team when you're getting that much of a bag. Like, you're not giving up any money or space for other positions so you can win. And he is at the end of his career. So I mean, to me, I don't know, a 2-year, maybe 3-year deal with like 120 million, probably 100 of it guaranteed. That sounds fair. And if he wants more than that, then I wouldn't be. I would be like, well, if he didn't want that, he wants more, then time to let him go. They're letting players go. They want to win. They're letting go of Cup, and Cup is a foundational piece. So I'm always more about whatever is best for the team, and I want the wins. So to me, the wins are what matters.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford, it's interesting because I thought no way. But I talked to Jake, and Jake is the resident Rams guy. I mean, he's the one that told me Aaron Donald was
Right.
retiring 3 days before it happened. So I trust that he hears things.
Right.
And he said that it really is like a 50-50 right now. And so I find it interesting. If they do move on from him, I think they're going to get more of a draft haul than what I would expect. If I'm a team and I'm bringing in a 36-year-old quarterback and I'm only going to get 2 or 3 years out of him, I'm not giving up a first round pick. But these teams get desperate, and if they're willing to give up a first, if I can get a first for him, and then I can go say, all right, we need a receiver anyways. I'll bring in Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams for a year. They're going to play in a dome. That'll make their life easier. We'll figure it out around them. We've got the young defense.
Yeah.
Now we've got the first round pick to go get the quarterback that was eventually going to be the starter here. And we still got our first round pick that we can actually draft and make this team better. That's a no brainer to me versus paying Stafford $50+ million to retire in a year. Like, no, thanks. I'm good.
Yeah,
I lost him. It was close. I felt like I was close to losing him multiple times, but either way, good call, man. A little behind enemy line session. That's always good. Appreciate you for supporting always, man. Even though you were for the wrong team, it's all good. Dave Barclay says, watch you everywhere, no matter what, if I can. I appreciate you, Dave. Always a big time supporter, man. And I really, really appreciate it. And Brother Bob says, Shanastan's finally seeing Kyle Levy for who he is. Bro, it's crazy because I saw that Stats had posted on Twitter that there's a lot of damning things in a book he's reading about Kyle Shanahan, and he's starting to lose trust. Like, bro, you were willing to like ruin relationships over Kyle Shanahan. It felt like it's like you divorced your wife if she disagreed with you on Kyle Shanahan. I'm joking, Rob, but that's the way it felt. It's like, man, you really, really love this guy. So for him to say it, geez, man, that's kind of crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So, hey, whatever, it is what it is. He's definitely going to have to step up big time this year. And the moment you hitch your wagon to a quarterback, the way that they're going to Brock Purdy, and then also you bring in a proven top tier defensive coordinator that everybody knows is that guy. I mean, the only thing that we can point to if it doesn't go well is you. So we're not going to blame Robert Saleh. We're not going to blame Brock Purdy. We're going to blame you. And you have no out. You can't say, well, it was my quarterback. Who cares? You paid him again, and you're paying him for multiple years and a lot of money. Tough luck. You can't say it's Robert Saleh because we're not going to believe you. You just gave him full autonomy to do whatever the heck he wanted and basically made him a co-head coach. So we're not going to believe you. So it better go well. And if it doesn't, we're blaming you. Dazza says, is Kyle really going to evolve enough that will allow us to win a ring in the future? I don't know, man. I really don't know. It does seem like it's going to be hard for him to win a ring here. It's hard not to point to the Philadelphia Eagles Andy Reid situation, because even before this Super Bowl, the Eagles won a ring when they moved on from Andy Reid. In fact, they won a ring before Andy Reid did. And then Andy Reid won multiple, including beating the Eagles, but the Eagles came back and beat him. So it was the best of both worlds. Both teams have multiple rings. The Eagles wouldn't change anything. They wouldn't change getting rid of Andy Reid because it was just time to move on. And Andy Reid wouldn't change leaving the Eagles. And they both came out better for it. Sometimes that's just the way it is. Sometimes you got two good people who are toxic for each other, and you're both better off moving on and finding a better spouse. So we'll see. Maybe that's the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. Maybe it's not, but something's got to shake this year for sure. His dad got to come to the sidelines. Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. SoCal says he lost service, but I'm back. It's all good, bro. I'm gonna dip out anyways. I appreciate you. It's been a little over an hour. Thank you to everybody that called in. Thank you for everybody in the chat for supporting. I'll be back tomorrow on Bleacher Report, and then I'll post that live here afterwards. Thank you so much for supporting as always. And get to the super chat real quick. Dazza says maybe Kyle is the Niners Mark Jackson, and we're waiting for our Steve Kerr. Definitely could be. Definitely could be. All right, y'all. Stay blessed. We'll talk soon. Peace.